Come on in. This is where it all happens. This is Inside Look. I'm joined today by senior reporter Liz DeSantis here at 14 News. Liz, I call you senior reporter. You're on every night. You've been here, I think, longer now than any other reporter, right?
Yeah, I think so. 2 years now.
Yeah. Welcome to Inside Look. I know you were reluctant to do this, and you like telling other people's stories, right?
I'm not usually the story. Normally, I tell other people's stories, but I try to stay out of it as much as possible and let other people shine.
I want to talk about that because that's a real balancing act. When you go out on a story, how do you kind of do that? How do you get what you need to tell the story in the way that you want to tell it and yet kind of retreat?
You know, I think I started this job as an introvert, and that's obviously changed because a large part of what we do is going out and meeting new people. But I think with that comes, I really love to listen. And that's the biggest part of what we do is listening to people, make sure we understand every single part of what they say and that we're able to really capture their voice. And that's what I try to do with all my stories.
It's interesting. You're an introvert. I didn't think there were any of those left in the world, let alone in a TV station. So how did you make the leap from introvert? I know you changed majors in college because you went down the music path to something which is quite extroverted at times. How did you make that? Why don't you walk us through that from music over to journalism?
Well, yeah, I was always really involved in the band in high school. I was in marching band. I was in a jazz band.
And this is in Memphis, right?
Yes,
Music City. So, you know, there's bumps the ante up right away.
Yeah,
right?
we're the city of blues, soul, and rock and roll. Not as much classical music, but I found my niche there. But yeah, I went to IU. I was really interested in the music school. And then it was during COVID. There wasn't a lot of music being made at that point. All the orchestra and ensemble was online, and that kind of gave me a pause from performing and doing the part of that that I really loved. So I took a step back, and I just decided that wasn't the path I wanted to take for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And what was your instrument? I'm sorry.
I was a flute player.
Okay. All right. And you got into the Jacobs School at IU, which is not easy to do, very difficult. Had you looked at other places, or did you just say, well, I'm going to Indiana? Or
I spent my entire senior year basically just looking at different conservatories across the U.S. I actually spent every summer I was in high school going to Interlochen, which is a intensive summer program up in Michigan.
Yeah, and so the life of a concert, I assume you wanted to perform on the flute, so you're practicing and learning, and a lot of that is solitary, right? I mean, you've got to, sometimes with a teacher. And now you're in COVID, so now everybody's solitary. We're locked down. So what was the light that blinked on that said, well, maybe I'll go over to the media school and give that a whirl?
I had always, loved writing. That was something that I naturally in school and high school just kind of gravitated towards. I loved my English classes and all that. So journalism to me was just a way to continue writing. I wasn't really much of a creative writing person, but the journalism school I started with working with the paper, and then somehow I really am not sure when this happened or how this happened, but I found my way over to the college television, and that's where I stayed. Now I'm here.
So were you on camera then in college?
Yes.
And so you started down that path, and you thought, hey, this might be something, or what was then the next spark that got you in the door here at 14?
I liked the work is I think what really drew me in. I really enjoyed getting to meet new people, learn new things with every story.
Mm-hmm. And so you came here, you said 2
years ago this June.
It seems like 3, right? 2 years ago. It seems like you've been here longer than that for some reason. You've grown so much in what you've done and the kind of stories that you've told. When you look at a story that you did in the first 3 weeks you were here versus today, what do you see?
It's definitely been a learning experience. For sure. I definitely think I've grown a lot since being here. I think I've become more comfortable in my own voice and helping other people tell their stories as well. And I think my passion for the work has only grown.
And I watch, of course, since you're on in the evening, I see you every day, or see your work every day. Well, you, of course, but your work too. And it's so wide and varied. I mean, in this week alone, there was one night you were with a couple in, I believe it was Muhlenberg County. It was in western Kentucky. They'd lost their home, their mobile home, to a flood. And so you had to go down and do this story with them. It was heart-wrenching story. This was like everything they had, and it washed away. So how do you prepare yourself going into that story? I mean, that's a long drive down. You're thinking in your mind what?
It's a long drive. The drive has definitely gotten shorter. All those drives kind of bebopping around the tri-state, especially the longer I'm here, the shorter the distance gets.
Yep.
But a lot of times, the stories I cover are difficult subjects. I'm, a visitor for the worst day of someone's life. And that can be hard. That can be, draining, continuously just speaking to people in the most difficult, most trying moments of their lives. But the way I view it, it's the honor of my life to be able to, share someone's story, to be able to connect to them maybe with the resources they need, to be able to, spread a seed of hope for someone else or resiliency.
Yeah. Well, so let's go back to the story with the flood and the couple that lost their home. So the long drive down, you get time to think, right? Like, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? What did you know about the story going in? Like, how'd you find out about it? And did they call you? Did someone call you? Or did you see it on social media? Or how did you get your lead?
I saw it on social media, actually, and I reached out to the family that had made the post, essentially just asking for help in that situation. I reached out to them. We had a quick phone call. I kind of got my bearings of what all was the situation, what the facts were, and I call that a kind of a pre-interview where I am kind of preparing myself a little bit for what questions I'm going to ask. I never really come with a list.
Yeah.
It's more of a conversation in that way to me, and I like that because it keeps it a little more spontaneous, a little more real.
So your head's not spinning all the way down. You're just like, I got to get to Muhlenberg County, and then we'll see what happens. Did you have a photographer that night, or were you working alone?
No, just me.
Okay, so this is another interesting part for me because, when you look at the story, obviously on television, the picture's 90% of it, right, more or less. So how did you develop that skill, like what to show, what not to show, and how to show?
I think, I'm writing in my head as I'm there. And since I'm the writer, I'm doing the interview, I'm shooting all the film in that regard. I'm kind of writing on the fly there. So as I'm writing in my head, I'm thinking, okay, this is what I want to say. This is what I want to show, because we try to show what we say. So I'm constantly in my head kind of trying to build a picture of what you're going to see and what you're going to hear the entire time.
Okay, and so when you get down there and now you're talking with the folks here, just setting my levels over here. Don't mind me. I'm fiddling with the buttons here on the board. When you interview the couple, newlyweds, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Then how do you even start? Like, how do you get to that comfort level? You can't just go in and bang, 3 sound bites and you're out. You kind of have to develop a rapport, even though everybody knows you're there for an hour, and it's got to be quick. So how do you make that happen? Because you do it very well. That's why I ask, as a primer to anybody else who's trying to do this.
I don't think I turn the camera on right away, because that's really intimidating for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I just have this, massive toaster-sized camera that I'm then pointing a couple feet away from your face. That's a really tough way to begin a conversation, begin an interaction. So I think we kind of talk. We get to know each other a little bit. I talk maybe a little bit about myself, because we're both kind of just getting to know each other. Obviously, the story is about them, but we're, people getting to know each other. So that's how I start all things off.
Okay, so you developed a rapport, you get what you need, and then you have a limited amount of time to turn it around and get it on the air. And then were you happy with the result that came out the other night?
Yeah, I mean, what I hope is that all of my stories are able to make a difference, and even if that's just in a small way. So with that family, I know that part of that story was I shared their GoFundMe, and hopefully they're able to get the help they need out of that. I know several of our viewers reached out actually wanting to help them, kind of encouraged by hearing their story and wanting to, extend their hearts out to them, their wallets out to them. So that was encouraging to me to see that people see that and they care.
So you go home and you feel like, well, today I made a difference. And I guess that's the goal. I guess that's the goal we all have around here, So then, and then tonight, and of course, we don't know exactly when this podcast will drop or when people will watch it. But on this particular day, you were doing a story about a couple that have been married. Was it like 70 years?
80
years.
Yeah.
Okay, I knew it was a long time, and those must be kind of fun. The feature, I call that a feature story. Is your preference toward features or more toward hard news, or where do you fall? Or is it just any good story is a good story?
I think that the second one, that any good story is a good story. I know, especially when I first started, I really gravitated towards the hard news, the investigative news. That's a lot of what I did in college. That's what I came in the job passionate about. But now, as I've gotten to meet more people, I think my mind has really opened to that. Is anyone that really has something compelling to share, I want to be able to help them tell their story.
Yeah, and so this is such a turnabout from where you probably thought you were going to be 10 years ago or 5 years ago. So are you happy with the way it's played out?
For sure. I don't know that I would have spent as many mornings getting up at 4 a.m. to practice the flute had I known I was going to do
You got up at 4 to practice the flute?
Most mornings I was in high school.
For how long? 4 to what?
About 4 years, most of high school.
I mean, 4 to 8, 4 to 6,
Oh,
4 to how many hours?
Probably like 4 to 6, so I could get in a full 2 hours every
Brutal.
day.
Scales and exercises and pieces, or what were you practicing? Just getting nimble, or?
It was supposed to be scales. I feel like I was probably more oriented on, instead of doing those rigorous tone exercise scales and all of that, I feel like I did play a lot more of the fun pieces. So
Yeah. Oh, that's something, an instrumentalist, when somebody sees somebody perform, they don't know about all that. Well, look, Liz is playing the flute, and they don't know about all that work that goes in. But by the same token, when you're doing stories, they don't understand. A lot of people don't understand the preparation that goes in, behind the scenes that you don't see. Were you prepared for that coming out of school and into, where you were having to turn it out daily like this, for the pressures and the demands, or were you pretty well, did you know what you were stepping into?
I think so. I spent in college a couple years working for the NPR PBS station up in Bloomington.
Mm-hmm.
I worked as an education and economy reporter up there. I also spent, I think as far as the pressure and how fast we move, I also spent about a year working up in New York for the World News Tonight with David Muir show. And that, that moved really quick all the time. So that really got me used to the fast-paced environment we have here, where things are changing every second. Something, you can have news come out and then you're on air the next 10 minutes. So
What's the biggest surprise about all this in the last 2 years for you? About the whole thing?
That's a tough one. I think how interesting the work is surprising to me. I wouldn't have done this if I wasn't interested in it. But, I think some of the way that it's changed, the way I see the world, the way I think about things, I think that's what's been the most surprising to me.
Interesting. And I know you're newly married, and so, you've got you on a different chapter in your life now, and that's quite an act, balancing act to do this and that at the same time. And one other question I had was, do your folks watch you back in Memphis? Like, are your family still in Memphis, I assume? So
Yes.
do they watch you every night on the app or however, and then give you notes, or how does that work?
My mom works really hard. She's a doctor. A lot of times late at night when I'm coming home from the night shift, she'll still be doing her charts, signing her charts. But if she remembers, she'll always tune in at 10. And if she misses it, my parents will usually both watch my piece at breakfast the next morning, since they go to bed a little earlier.
Yeah, that's great. So you're connected to your family still, even though you're up here. And what's your dream job? Like, if you could just name anything, you'd be the official flautist rather, of some news operation, right? But what would it be?
I would love to be a foreign correspondent. In school, I really loved studying languages. I studied Arabic all 3 years I was in school. So
It'll probably be a big market for you right about now. So, and as a foreign correspondent, I mean, my goodness, the pressures but the adventures too. Think of the things where would you want to do it?
I just like in this job, I don't love to stay in one county for a long time. I love to see every part of the tri-state. I want to see every part of the world. Yeah.
Right. So that's interesting. So, we'll look for you on the world stage at some point. And in the meantime, we'll watch you every night here on 14 News, mainly in the evenings, although we all work different shifts and around the clock. So it's been really good to talk to you. I'm sorry you were nervous about doing this. See, it was fun. Talking about you and the work a little bit.
Yeah. I'm okay.
Okay.
I lived,
You're,
so.
you're solid. Well, you did live. That's right. We've gotten a 100% survival rate here on Inside Look. Liz, thanks so much for
Thank
coming
you.
out and doing this. If you'd like to listen to all the Inside Looks, you can do them wherever you get your podcast, and you can watch Liz DeSantis and all of our other Inside Looks on the 14 News YouTube channel. I'm Jeff Lyons. Thanks for joining us.